Welcome back to Gambling Flow, your daily dose of gambling insights. I'm Russell Kane,
And I'm Fiona Blake.
and we are thrilled to have you with us today.
As we take a deep dive into a topic that can be a bit of a headache.
Yeah, especially when those winnings start rolling in.
That's right. Taxes on gambling winnings.
It's something that every gambler needs to understand.
From the casual player to the high roller.
So let's unpack this.
We all dream of hitting it big, right?
Oh yeah, whether it's a slot machine, jackpot, a winning poker hand, or even a lucky sports bet.
But the reality is Uncle Sam wants his cut.
The IRS views gambling income just like any other income.
So that means even those small wins, like a $10 poker pot with friends,
Technically should be reported.
it's probably best to avoid bragging about those small wins on your next tax return.
But things get more serious when you win over $600.
Exactly. We're talking Form W-2G territory.
If you hit a big win at a casino or sportsbook, they'll issue you a Form W-2G.
And they might even withhold taxes up front.
Now that withholding rate can vary.
If you provide your Social Security number, they'll typically withhold 28% for federal income tax.
If not, it jumps to 31%.
So if you hit that life-changing jackpot, be prepared for a little deduction right off the bat.
But here's the thing. Even if taxes are withheld up front, you still need to report those winnings on your tax return.
And this is where it gets tricky, especially for those who haven't been keeping track of their wins and losses.
So that's where a gambling diary comes in, right?
Exactly. It's not just for bragging rights or analyzing your poker skills.
It's a vital tool for proving your gambling losses to the IRS.
The IRS allows you to deduct gambling losses to offset your winnings.
So there's a catch.
You can only deduct losses up to the amount of your winnings.
Okay, so let's say you won $1,000 throughout the year, but also lost $500.
You'd report the $1,000 in winnings, but then deduct the $500 in losses, reducing your taxable gambling income to $500.
Not bad.
But without proper documentation, proving those losses to the IRS becomes almost impossible.
So that gambling diary is your best friend.
Think of it as your gambling ledger, your financial diary for all things betting.
Every time you gamble, record the date, the type of gambling, the location, even the names of others involved, if any.
And most importantly, your wins and losses.
And this applies to all forms of gambling.
From casual poker nights with friends to trips to the casino or online bets.
So everything from a friendly game of blackjack to a high-stakes poker tournament.
Absolutely. Every win and every loss needs to be documented.
And when it comes to claiming those losses on your tax return,
Schedule A of Form 1040 or 1040-SR is where you'll want to head.
that's where you itemize your deductions.
You'll report your winnings under other income and your losses under other itemized deductions.
Now, a scribbled notebook might not cut it with the IRS, right?
You need more concrete documentation.
Like what?
Things like Form W-2G betting tickets, canceled checks, credit card statements, bank withdrawals.
No, and even receipts from casinos and sports books.
Think of it as creating a paper trail or a digital trail that supports your claims.
So it's all about transparency and leaving a clear record of your gambling activities.
But we can't forget about state taxes.
Oh, right. That adds another layer of complexity.
While the federal rules are relatively straightforward, state taxes can be a whole other ballgame.
I bet, because every state has its own set of rules and regulations.
Exactly. Some states have no income tax at all, while others have specific rules for reporting gambling winnings.
So it's crucial to do your homework.
Research your state's specific regulations.
Don't want to be caught off guard come tax time.
Check your state's website, consult with a tax professional if needed, and make sure you're playing by the rules in your jurisdiction.
Now, before we wrap up this segment,
There's something incredibly important I want to emphasize.
what's that?
Honesty is the best policy when it comes to the IRS.
Right. Trying to hide gambling income or inflate your losses is a recipe for trouble.
Be upfront about your winnings. Meticulously document your losses.
And you'll be in a much better position.
The IRS has sophisticated ways of tracking down discrepancies.
So play it smart, keep those records clean, and enjoy your winnings with peace of mind.
We'll be right back to dive into some specific scenarios and strategies.
Stay tuned.
Welcome back to Gambling Flow, where we're breaking down the ins and outs of gambling and taxes.
Before we went to commercial,
We were talking about how crucial it is to keep detailed records of everything. How honesty really is the best policy when it comes to the IRS.
right. Nobody wants to get audited, especially when it comes to something as tricky as gambling income.
Exactly.
Can you walk us through some real-life situations that gamblers might find themselves in?
And how to handle those situations from a tax standpoint.
Like, what would you recommend?
Sure, let's start with a simple one. Imagine you're playing slots in Vegas,
Oh, yeah.
and bam, you hit a jackpot, $2,000.
Sounds like a pretty good trip to Vegas.
In this case, the casino is going to give you a Form W-2G, like we talked about earlier, and they'll probably withhold 28% for federal taxes right there on the spot.
Oh, okay.
You'll get what's left after that, and that W-2G is super important for doing your taxes right.
You better hold on to that form.
Absolutely. Now, let's say that over the year you've had some losses too.
Okay.
Maybe you lost around $500 from other gambling.
So when you file your taxes...
You would report the whole $2,000 win,
Okay.
but then you can deduct the $500 that you lost.
So you're only taxed on the $1,500 profit you actually made.
Exactly. You got it is. The IRS lets you balance out your wins with your losses.
I see.
Now let's switch gears a bit.
Okay.
And imagine you're a real poker enthusiast who plays in tournaments and cash games a lot.
No, you're talking.
This is where that gambling diary becomes even more important.
Really?
You have to write down every single win and loss, no matter how small it seems.
Wow. Every single one.
This is especially true with poker because the amounts can go up and down so much from hand to hand.
So even if I win a tiny pot in a friendly game at home...
You should write it down.
Yep.
It's all about having a complete and honest record of your gambling. Remember, when it's time to do your taxes, you'll add up all your poker winnings and then subtract all your losses.
Okay, what if I lose more than I win in a year?
What happens then?
Yeah, do I get money back from the IRS for all that I lost?
Well, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way.
Oh, man.
You won't owe any taxes on your poker playing for that year.
Okay.
But you can't use those extra losses to reduce your income from other places, like your job.
So there's a limit to how much those losses can help me out.
That's right.
What about gambling online?
A lot of people do that these days.
How does that work with taxes?
It's the same idea. Any money you win from gambling online, whether it's sports betting, casino games, or poker, counts as taxable income. Just like with in-person gambling, you have to report those winnings.
Okay.
And you can deduct your losses up to the amount that you won.
So it's all the same to the IRS, whether I'm at a casino, at a poker table, or on my couch playing online.
You got it. The IRS sees all gambling income the same way no matter where you earned it.
Makes sense.
There's one more scenario I want to mention.
Cup?
Winning prizes that aren't cash.
Oh, like what kind of prizes?
This happens a lot with casino promotions or drawings.
Like if you win a car or vacation package.
Exactly. Even though it's not cold, hard cash.
You still have to pay taxes on it.
Yes, you do. You need to figure out the fair market value of that prize and report it as income on your tax return.
So even if I'm not walking away with a suitcase full of cash, I still have to think about taxes.
That's right. The IRS is interested in the value you receive, no matter what form it comes in.
Interesting.
So if you win a fancy car or a luxurious vacation, you're still going to owe taxes on how much those things are worth.
This has been super helpful.
Glad to hear it.
I think our listeners are getting a much clearer picture of how taxes work with different gambling situations.
I hope so. Remember, it's all about being informed, being organized, and of course, being honest with the IRS.
Don't try to trick the IRS.
They usually figure it out.
But there are resources out there to help you figure out the complicated world of gambling and taxes. Absolutely.
If you're not sure about something.
It's always a good idea to talk to a tax professional. They can give you personalized advice.
Yes, they can.
We've talked a lot about the technical stuff.
When it comes to gambling and taxes.
But what about the ethical side of things?
Oh, that's an important point, too.
Gambling can be a fun way to spend time.
And a good way to relax.
But it's really important to be responsible about it.
You need to set limits for yourself.
On how much you're willing to spend.
And how much time you're willing to spend gambling.
And never gamble with money you can't afford to lose.
That's right. Gambling should be entertainment, not a way to try to make money.
And when it comes to taxes...
It's important to remember that paying your fair share is part of being a responsible citizen.
Those taxes pay for important things that we all benefit from.
Exactly. It's about doing your part and contributing to society.
So enjoy the excitement of gambling.
But always do it responsibly and within your means.
And of course...
remember to take care of your tax obligations like a good citizen.
Great points. I think that wraps up this section nicely.
I agree.
We'll be back after a short break.
Talk about some more strategic tips.
On how to keep more of your winnings.
By minimizing what you owe in taxes.
Stick with us. Welcome back to Gambling Flow, everyone. We've talked about a lot today.
From the basics of reporting winnings and deducting losses to the importance of honesty and those tricky state taxes.
But now let's get to the fun part.
How to hold on to more of your winnings.
Yeah. Nobody likes paying more taxes than they have to.
So let's dive into some strategies for minimizing your tax liability without getting into trouble.
What are some key things that gamblers should keep in mind?
Well, like we've been saying all episode, meticulous record keeping is absolutely essential.
The gambling diary is sounding more and more important.
It's your best friend when it comes to taxes.
But it's more than just jotting down wins and losses, right?
Right. It's about being strategic and organized.
Okay.
You should categorize your gambling activities,
Like, what do you mean?
like slots, poker, sports betting, or anything else you do. Okay. Track wins and losses separately for each category. This will give you a really clear picture of how you're doing overall.
So don't just lump everything together.
Treat each type of gambling like its own investment portfolio.
That's a good way to think about it.
This way you can see which activities are actually making you money and which ones might be costing you more than they're worth.
It helps you make smarter decisions about where to spend your time and money.
Exactly. And speaking of smart choices, another strategy to consider is timing your wins and losses.
Timing? What do you mean?
Remember, you can only deduct gambling losses up to the amount of your winnings for that year.
Right. We talked about that earlier.
You can't use extra losses to offset other income.
Okay.
So if you have a really good year with big winnings.
You might want to take some calculated risks or cash out some winnings before the year ends.
Exactly. By offsetting those big wins with some losses, you can lower your overall taxable income for that year.
I like it. It's like playing a game of strategy with the tax code.
Now, for those who gamble a lot, especially those who consistently win big, another valuable strategy is to get professional tax advice.
Okay, so when is it really necessary to talk to a tax expert?
If you're hitting those big wins regularly or your gambling is getting more complicated, talking to a tax pro who specializes in gambling income can be a huge help.
Like having a personal financial coach for your gambling.
Exactly. They can guide you through all the rules, help you find deductions you might have missed, and make sure you're doing everything by the book.
And for high rollers, that kind of expertise can be priceless.
It can save you a ton of money and headaches in the long run.
This has been really insightful.
I'm glad you think so.
I think our listeners are leaving with some great strategies for navigating the world of gambling and taxes.
The key takeaway is to be informed, proactive, and strategic.
With the right approach, you can enjoy your winnings while minimizing your tax burden.
Well said.
And folks, if you still have questions about anything we talked about today, don't hesitate to reach out to a tax professional.
They're there to help.
And remember to always gamble responsibly.
Set limits, stay within your budget, and never chase your losses.
Enjoy the entertainment aspect of gambling without letting it take over your life.
Excellent advice. Well, that brings us to the end of another episode of Gambling Flow.
We hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the world of gambling and taxes.
It's a topic that every gambler needs to understand.
I'm Russell King.
And I'm Fiona Blake.
Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share this episode with your gambling buddies. And until next time, may the odds be ever in your favor.